Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto, guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at Cardano's ADA paired with USDT, and we are using Binance as a data source. We're going to start things off with this weekly chart, guys. And talk about what to expect potentially next here for ADA. So everything on this weekly chart is looking pretty good. We can obviously see these 5 impulse waves to the upside here. Everything kind of kick-starting here for Harmony back in March of 2020, really peaking out nice and strongly here in wave 3 before our 4th wave correction, setting new all-time highs just last week. And I do think that all-time highs are on the horizon here in the next little while as well. I think everything on ADA here is heating up nicely. And again, our price expectation is set up there at $7.20 up to $10. But I do think that once we start seeing smart contracts roll out, more projects kind of building on the space and getting launched, migration of projects over from Ethereum to the Cardano ecosystem, new partnerships and all that kind of good stuff. I do think that we are going to start to see a significant push much higher above some of these levels. From a technical point of view, it's not here yet, so we have to rely on what information we have to hand right now and speculate a little bit. But for now, for $7.20 to $10 is pretty safe range, and I like to think that we could potentially push up to some of these additional high areas for Cardano in the very near future. We obviously just have to see how things kind of play out in the next couple of months. But everything on Cardano here is looking pretty good. We can see that we are overbought on our stochastic RSI, but again, this is something that we've seen previously. Right, during our first wave, we can see that we were overbought. Wave 2 correction took us down to the oversold area. Wave 3 was overbought for quite some time. It was a slight pullbacks here and there, but otherwise we actually started to see some significant push to the upside here, whilst maintaining a nice overbought area. We had the correction taking us down to the oversold area. When we're back up into the overbought areas, we start talking about this 5th wave to the upside. So again, we're going to be up here for quite some time. I would have thought there'll be little kind of pullbacks as before we get into that kind of bear market scenario where we talk about potentially dropping a significant amount of volume and price, and then of course accumulating massively during the bear market. So if you're interested in staying long term, then do stick around for the bear market analysis as we start to choose where our price points are going to be for accumulating. And of course, we'll also be doing some swing trading as well on the way down to make some additional cash. So some fantastic things are on the horizon, right? So do stick around for that. So let's actually jump this down into our daily chart. And here we're going to take a look at what's going on most recently, right? So we can obviously see that the previous all-time high was set over here before we went into this kind of correction wave, a 4th wave. And then we started to get some serious traction, taking out these key areas here were fantastic. And then obviously this main 618.702.786 area was the rejection point. We got rejected from the top here and retested our 618 and then absolutely went off like a rocket to the upside, taking out and putting new all-time highs in. And we actually kind of just fell short where I thought we were going to set new all-time highs just over here. We actually felt a little bit short. We've had that pullback, but what does that pullback mean? Well, it means that we're now oversold on our daily RSI, okay, our stochastic RSI. So in the same way that we saw with our 3rd wave, right, we had to have these natural corrections come in and allow us to basically correct things technically to push on higher. So we can see that this little correction here allowed us to go up halfway towards our price target of $3.37, and then we had another pullback. Again, not as low as this one, but still, reasonably low. That's taken us into this oversold area, which now gives us a huge amount of swing space to the upside here. So I do feel that all-time highs are now literally just around the corner. Really hard to get the timing right, because I did think we were going to see it on this particular day here when everything was lined up nicely for it. But I'm not going to give it a time frame, but I do think it's going to be really, really soon, guys. Everything is lining up really, really good here for Cardano's ADA to set some all-time highs. My target is this 1.618. This is $3.37. And as long as things continue the way they are, that is where we are likely to find the next bit of resistance on that next step to the upside, okay? So we'll look to push up here and then have a small pullback before continuing in the same way that we have done before, okay? So everything is lining up quite nicely. So $3.37 is the first target. This would be followed up by the 2.618, which is $4.84. That's followed up by the 3.618, and that is $6.31. The 4.236 extension level comes in at $7.22, okay? And like I said, on the weekly chart, really hard to say for certain where things are likely to go as we start to get the smart contracts and new projects launching in Ethereum and all that kind of good stuff. So obviously there are some additional yellow lines up here. One represents $10, the second represents $15, and then we have $20 and $25 accordingly. So obviously we'll have to see and assess the situation, see if we can find some interesting areas that we are likely to kind of achieve during this run and what we'll achieve in the next run, etc. So anyone who is aware, I did make a few assumptions for this bull run and did a price prediction for 2025, and obviously that has a significant high on these kind of price predictions as well. So on this daily chart, everything is lined up quite nicely. Let's jump down into our hourly view. And here we can obviously see that there was an upward trend line that we've been tracking for quite some time, actually. If we actually just zoom on out here, we can see that all the way from down here, we had this upward trend line. This is actually invalidated during the sideways trade, right? So we basically started trading sideways here for Cardano's ADA. So there is a bit of a small kind of, that's downward trend here. And again, you kind of got this triangular wedge that has formed. We broke down to the downside, retesting the trend line. And again, we're just tracking on the downside right now on this hourly. Now we are, of course, not overbought, but we are heading down a little bit lower. We're looking for a loss of momentum here to see if we can get that sentiment into a nice strong way. If we actually extend our trend line here to our support line, and what we could actually see is this triangular wedge, right? We have this support line and a trend line here. This forms a triangular wedge that basically by the 2nd of September would actually play out one way or another, either fall down lower or actually push to up the upside quite significantly. Now, the fact that we are tracking quite well on the weekly and tracking really well on the daily, this hourly is the only one now that really is lagging behind it, just trying to get that kind of everything lined up ready for a break to the upside, okay? And there are support lines a little bit all over the place here for Cardano. So we have to acknowledge that there's also one just here, which would narrow down our triangular wedge somewhat. So if we put that there, we can see again, we get tighter and tighter and tighter inside this triangular wedge that actually we could start to see this breakout really, really soon. Okay, and again, that correction that's needed just to lower the stochastic before it also has that kind of really good moment to the upside. Now, what we do is we like to check the ADVI dashboard, the artificial intelligence and machine learning, to make sure that everything is lining up nicely for us as well, right? So A2 rating for Cardano overall, no change there. It has been A2 for a couple of days, so that's looking pretty good. Now, the fear and greed index is up there as greedy. This is quite obvious. We can see that within the charts. Everything is moving quite nicely. So an A2 rating. But obviously, when you're up at that kind of extreme greed scenario, this is where profits are taken. So we have to acknowledge that we will start to see a bit of a pullback here before we actually start to see a really good push to the upside. Generally, people buy the dip or buy the fear and sell the news or sell the greed, right? And that's ultimately what you see. Now, from a fear and greed index, this is good for FOMO. We'll start to see some good traction here. So an A2 rating is showing pretty good there. Now, the moving averages are also in A2, so that's looking positive. The Sharpe ratio is in A2, and what we mean by this is a risks to rewards. So by holding ADA, is there a risk to holding ADA in terms of return on investment and that kind of stuff? Well, actually, this is an A2, so there's definitely no risk there. It's looking actually like a pretty good asset to be holding right now. This is above the 50-day average and looking pretty good. The peak end value is up at B2. We have the profitability in A1, the best it can be. So obviously, that's looking very, very good. We have the AMI-HAD ratio up at an A2 rating, so no liquidity problems either. So the machine learning here and the artificial intelligence has picked out some pretty good data for Cardano. Nothing that's alarming us, nothing that we should be concerned about, and everything is on track to continue the way that it has been. So right now we're just waiting for these technicals on this hourly chart to really line up nicely with our daily, and then we should hopefully start to see that break to the upside where we start setting these new all-time highs. And again, you know, my expectations are to go up towards that $3.37. That's the 1.618 extension of the Fibonacci retracement tool. And if we are ever in doubt, guys, it's important that we do have a good zoomed out view, because ultimately it's about long-term investments rather than short-term gains. This is not a get rich quick, although I think some people in the space have timed things quite luckily. But ultimately, you know, I'm thinking about where things are going in 2022, 2021. You know, where do we peak this kind of bull run? Of course, where things in 2025, right? As a long-term investor in a Cardano, I have no intention of shutting down my pools. I have every intention of delegating for a long time anyway. So we'll continue to run our ADA pool during the bear market. We'll continue to basically delegate to various different pools in the space as well, helping the decentralization effort. And we will, of course, sell a little bit on the way up, lock in some profits, and then accumulate massively on ADA on the bear market in the way down. And again, stick around if that's of interest to you guys. But hopefully you have found this brief update on Cardano useful and informative. If you have, then do hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new, make sure you subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With all that said, done, and out of the way, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one.